Since having some non-paying tenants who use one of my properties as a dog kennel and had to be taken to court to be evicted, I'm super strict on who I let my properties to. I use a letting agent who finds potential tenants. Then the letting agent uses a referencing agent who references the tenants. And previously, I always trusted in this process. However, now I also vet the tenants myself. I ask for contact numbers and email addresses for their 2 previous landlords and the same from their current employer. And I personally call to reference the tenants myself. I look for 2 or more working tenants who have held their jobs for a minimum of 6 months, and I don't take anybody with any CCJs. They have to have a proven and clean previous renting history and a good reference from their previous landlords or letting agent. If I suspect any red flags at all, then I simply say no. I used to focus on having no voids or downtime and getting tenants in my properties as quick as possible. But for me now, it's all about finding the right tenants and providing outstanding tenants with amazing homes. Be very careful if your letting agent is fully managing the tenanting of your properties. Not being involved cost me £10,000.
Being a landlord in London is a horrible, horrible job.
Landlords do not have it easy. And if you think they do, well, I've just spent all day carrying out maintenance on the property that I manage. It's the only one that I manage, the rest are with letting agents. Some of the things I've had to do, for example, the drains are getting clogged up because the tenants are putting food down the sink. And that in turn is causing the washing machine to back up and flood the sink. They're not cleaning the shower, so the silicone is going black and mouldy. I mean, they're not cleaning anything, and that's up to them if they want to live like that. But it just then starts to lead to, mould appearing. The garden's covered in cat shit because they're not picking it up, and weeds are growing, they're not removing them. So it's just turning into a jungle. Then I go into the loft, and the roofer that I paid to fix the roof hasn't fixed the roof, so it's still leaking. And you, as a good landlord, you maintain the property so that it's safe for anyone to live in. But, you need to pay to have all the smoke alarms fitted. You need the electrical safety test. You need the gas safety test. When I hear, landlords have it so easy, it's all right for them, you have no idea. And I'm not moaning, because at the end of the day, if I really didn't want to do it, I just wouldn't do it. But the point is, a lot of landlords feel that way, that they've just had enough. It is not easy being a landlord. And so many are just jacking it in now, which ultimately is reducing the supply and pushing rents up. And that's the only reason rent's going up, because it is bloody hard work.
Today's changeover day. There's Rob just going in. We're going to go and inspect this student house. So fingers crossed, everything looks okay. So this is our inspection form that we do on final inspections. So it's final inspection. We're checking everything now. Keys, I can see that we've got the 4 keys there from the tenants. That's always a good start.
I had a HMO in Brentwood in Essex, the first property I bought, and I rented it to someone else, and they turned it into service accommodation. The neighbours hated it so much. They found me on land registry. They turned up to Marsh Farm and found me and said, our life is a nightmare because you've got multiple people living in this house, coming in at all different times. We bought a really lovely Georgian mock townhouse, and you're doing this to us. I'm so sorry. The next day, I said to them, the HMO is over, and I've just got it straight back on an AST.
There are a lot of landlords now who are losing money every month, and nobody ever talks about that.
As tenants are feeling the squeeze, so are landlords. And the problem is, because it's a business situation, if your cost base is higher than your level of income, so for landlords, they're not getting the rent to cover their increased mortgage costs, it means that they're going to go bust. And so ultimately, that tenant is going to be out of the home and they're going to be homeless.
Obviously, everyone assumes they're rich, don't they? Oh, no, they're the 1%. No, they're not. And, they're just regular people who foolishly bought a house when interest rates were low without doing any research.
One of the speakers said today that we shouldn't call ourselves landlords, because that sounds a bit feudal. We should say we're housing providers, because that sounds more like what we actually do. And I think the government should recognise that and make its legislation to facilitate people continuing as landlords and or as housing providers and becoming new ones, rather than driving people out of the industry which is what's happening at the moment.
We had a tenant pay perfectly for 6 months, changed the locks, decided he didn't want to pay anymore, had to go to court, he had a guarantor, so we've now got a second charge on his mum's house. So if at any point in the future she wants to sell, then we'll get our money back. Pointless. So it's like all these problems, like even on single let, everyone says, oh, get your vanilla buy to let, single lets, they're lovely, you can just leave them there, lovely family in, fuck that, it's crap. Boring, crap money, it's just not worth it. I think everyone talks about getting your money back out and then it's, infinite ROI. What's the point when you're putting £100 in your bank account? I'd rather leave my money in and get something substantial out every month. Because then your boiler goes and you've lost 10 years worth of income. It's like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
The times that we are in, it has become so difficult to be a landlord and so expensive to be a landlord that we are left no options but to put the rents up. So you're directing your anger completely at the wrong people. As you might not be aware, a buy-to-let mortgage is always a higher interest rate than a standard residential mortgage. And the reason for that is obviously that the banks want to make their profit from the rent being paid by the tenant as well. So it's not just the landlord who's making money in this transaction. And why do people expect that landlords shouldn't be able to make money when we're doing work, we're putting the risk in, we're taking the mortgage out? We have to be able to make money to keep the property maintained and repaired. That's just natural economics of business. You have to make money to be able to put money back into things. Here's a great example. I'm just currently dealing with a court order that I obtained last week. The tenant's left £3,498 of arrears since January on a rent that I actually only charged £680 a month for. Not only that, there's £424 of court fees, which allegedly is in part of this order, but also £1,500 of legal fees, which the judge said I was not allowed to recoup because the tenant wouldn't be able to pay it anyway, which is just absolutely crazy. So that's just going to encourage her to go to the next property and do the same thing again. Funnily enough, I've had an offer from Leeds City Council after all this time, even though I've tried to reach out to them way before taking this matter to court, and they've actually said, well, we'll clear all of the arrears and all of the court costs if the tenant can stay. Well, doesn't that paint a great picture? Taxpayers' money going straight back into the system, and this person's going to never learn a lesson, and she's just going to do the same again and again and again. It's gotten to a point now, even myself as a reputable landlord who does everything for my tenants, I will not be allowing that property to stay in my portfolio. We will be going for the eviction order on the 10th of August. We'll be getting that back and we'll be selling it off and getting rid because it's just not worth the time anymore. And as the supply of rental properties drop, I hope those people who have pushed for this to happen look in the mirror and go, actually, it's their fault and it's government's fault and it's shelter's fault for pushing the very people who are trying to help them out of the door.
Being a landlord is an absolute hassle. You're on holidays and there's always a problem. You've got to get something fixed, a leaky thing. To get anyone into central London today to pay for their congestion charge and whatnot is at least £150, £180 just to come to get them out to diagnose a problem in the property.
Will ultimately you sell your rental property, do you think?
Yeah, or I just won't rent it out. I'll just leave it stagnant and then in 10 years or whatnot when I have to sell it because it's just too much of a hassle.
I mean, people are shouting at the radio now, of course, saying you're so selfish to do that. How would you respond?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I am so selfish because I started working from the age of 15 and had 2 or 3 jobs throughout my whole life, even after kids. So I am selfish because I've had a hard time. And I think the caller just prior to me is absolutely correct, right on, spot on, that the money can't go to people who can't control their budget because time and time again, this is the issue. It has to go from the government to the landlord. So the government and the people, they can't expect landlords to pick up the tab because they have an unfortunate situation.
Right. Sometimes you get some absolutely ridiculous comments from tenants on your social media just because you're defending a landlord. Makes no sense whatsoever. Now think about it. Last year I met a landlord on the verge of a breakdown, right? Having to sell his property, etc., because he couldn't keep up with the mortgage payments because the tenant didn't pay the rent. Now think about this, right? He told me he's been saving for over 10 years, plus trying to keep up with inflation as well, because he wants to have something for his children for when he grows up, right? Or even for himself, for as a retirement, some sort of security, etc. Now he's been doing that for 10 years. He tried not to have all his coffees or anything, etc., nice in his life, right? And he's been trying to save all this money. Now, after that, he buys a property finally, gets a tenant from hell who believes that she shouldn't have paid any rent whatsoever, etc. And after she leaves, She calls him names, chucks abuse at him, and says to him, "You're greedy, you're this, you're that, etc., and you're taking money from us."
Just had my mortgage product switch on my buy-to-let, 6.62%. Try saying that with a lisp. That means 150% increase on my monthly payments. What's that going to do to the buy-to-let market? Well, a lot of people are going to be exiting. Great for first-time buyers, more stock on the market, more choice, cheaper prices, brilliant. But most first-time buyers are not buying now anyway because their rates are around 6% as well. So it's all swings and roundabouts really. And I said this a year ago and I got absolutely slated for it. But losing buy-to-let landlords is not a good thing because less stock on the market means less choice for tenants, means the rents are going up even further and they're already very, very high. So let's look at the bigger picture. Bank of England waited way too long to raise rates and now it's a bit of a panic. Not good.
Tom asks, what work is involved in being a landlord? Now, from the tone of the comment, this apart from living off the labour of the workers, I don't think Tom really wants to know. But since you ask, being a professional residential landlord involves a wide array of tasks and responsibilities, which can be broadly divided into the following categories. 1, acquisition, looking for suitable properties for investment. 2, financial analysis, evaluating the potential return on investment of the property. 3, negotiation, discussing terms and conditions of the sale. 4, securing financing, applying for loans or mortgages if necessary. 5, property purchase, completing the necessary paperwork to buy the property. Renovation. 6, property inspection, assessing the property's condition, identifying necessary repairs or renovations. 7, contractor sourcing, finding suitable contractors for the renovation work. 8, project management, overseeing the renovation project to ensure it's completed on time and in budget. 9, quality control, inspecting the completed renovations to ensure they meet the required standards. 10, legal obligations, understanding local laws, familiarising yourself with local landlords, tenant laws and regulations. 11, contract drafting, writing tenancy agreements that comply with local laws. 12, rights enforcement, enforcing the terms of the tenancy agreement and dealing with any legal disputes. Tenant management. 13, advertising, the marketing of the property to potential tenants. 14, tenant screening, evaluating potential tenants' rental history, credit score and references. 15, lease signing, facilitating the signing of the lease agreement. 16, rent collection, collecting rent and managing late or missing payments, which happens a lot. 17, conflict resolution, mediating disputes between tenants, between the landlord and tenant or tenants and neighbours. 18, move out inspections, checking the property for damage when a tenant moves out. That also happens a lot. Maintenance and repairs. 19, routine maintenance, checking regularly so that property maintenance can be kept up. 20, property management, arranging repairs to be done when necessary. 21, emergency response, dealing with urgent issues like leaks and power outages. Financial management. 22, keeping track of income, expenses and other financial records. 23, tax preparation, preparing and filing taxes related to rental income. 24, budget planning for future expenses of renovations and repairs. 25, insurance management, ensuring the property is adequately insured. But as you say, Tom, it's mainly just living off the labour of the workers.